back to my channel and welcome to today's video. In today's video I'm going to be doing my April mid-month wrap-up. So I am filming this a little bit later than what I would normally film it, but I'm filming this on the 18th of April, and so far for this month I have read 15 books in total, so really happy with that. I've said it before in many of my other videos, but the reason I can read so much is because I have basically 2 hours of uninterrupted reading each day, Monday to Friday. Because of my commute to work, I go on the bus, so I can basically read quite a bit on the bus on my way to work, or to and from work. And if I'm reading kind of like a 300 to 400 page book, I can usually get through quite a lot of that in those 2 hours. So it usually only takes me like a couple of days to get through a book, which is why I can read so much. So without further ado, I'm just going to run through all of the books that I've read so far this month. I don't think I've actually had any 5 stars this month so far, which is a little bit sad. But there have been some really good books that I have really enjoyed, but no 5 stars so far. So we'll see if in the second half we get any 5 stars, but really happy with what I have read so far this month. So starting off at the beginning of the month, I read The Favourites by Lane Fargo, which I gave 4.5 stars to, and I think on Goodreads I did give this I gave it a 4, but it was a 4.5, like it was close to a 5-star but not quite. So this one is a kind of general fiction book. It's not a romance, but there is kind of a little bit of a romance in the story, but not like, that's not the main focus, so I'd classify it as general fiction. And this one follows 2 ice skaters, so we follow Katrina Shaw and Heath Rocha, and at the beginning of the book, and the kind of prologue of the book is from Katrina Shaw's point of view, and it says to something along the lines of like, today marks 10 days since the worst day of my life, or something like that. And we follow these 2 characters throughout time through their ice skating journey. So they meet when they are very young, like young teenagers, and they become ice skating partners. And Katrina Shaw's main goal in life is to make it to the Olympics and win gold medal at the Olympics. And they are from a less privileged background. So there are other characters in this book that have definitely come from a more privileged upbringing and have a lot more opportunities to kind of succeed. But Katrina and Heath really have to kind of fight throughout their entire lives to achieve their goals. And we follow their journey in their ice skating career from very young teenagers right up until adulthood. And I really enjoyed this one. I thought it was really, really well told. I felt like this was very similar to Daisy Jones and the Six. Like, it had similar sort of vibes to that book. I think if you've read Daisy Jones and the Six, you would probably really enjoy this one. And we, as I say, we follow their journey, and the reason I didn't give it a full 5 stars is because I was expecting something more. It's hard to explain without giving spoilers. I don't want to give spoilers, but we kind of lead up at the beginning of the book. As I said, we know that something bad happened to Katrina, and we are now like, it's on like the 10-year anniversary or whatever. They've done like a documentary about it. So I was expecting something really, really bad to have happened, and then when we actually get to the reveal of what did happen, I felt that it was a little bit lacking. Like, it wasn't as explosive and as exciting as I was expecting, based on the build up from the beginning of the book. So that's why I didn't give it a full 5 stars, but I did really enjoy this one, and I'm definitely interested to check out more from this author in the future. Then I read Heartstopper Volume 2 by Alice Oseman. I'm slowly making my way through the Heartstopper series, because I am interested to read the series as a whole, because I know it is very, very popular. And this one I did like a little bit more than the first volume. This one I gave 3.5 stars to. So this whole, it's a graphic novel series for those who don't know, and it follows 2 young teenagers, Nick and Charlie. I'm not quite 100%, I think it does mention their names. not their names, sorry, their ages. I think they are kind of older teenagers. They're still at school at the beginning of the volume, so I think they're kind of like 16, 17 maybe, or 15, 16, 17, around about that sort of age. And it is their romance, and in the first book it was very, or in the first volume I should say, it was very much like an introduction to the characters, kind of a little bit, we kind of saw like a little bit of the romance in the first volume, but this one really focused more on the volume, in volume 2 it really focused more on the romance. Nick, or is it Charlie? No, I think it's Nick. One of the characters at the beginning of the series we know is gay. They are out as gay, and everyone in the school knows that they're gay, and it's established that they are gay. But one of the other characters, and I think it's Nick, or maybe one of them, I can't remember which way around it is, but the other one is not, and he starts spending time with the other one and starts questioning his feelings, and really in this volume we get to see them kind of develop their romance as they kind of establish where they're going to be. And I like this one a little bit more than the first volume. I do still think it's obviously aimed at a kind of a younger demographic, so I feel like I'm not necessarily enjoying this as much as I maybe would have if I read it when I was younger, but I'm still enjoying it. I think it is a definitely a good series to read. Next, I listened to Crossed by Emily McIntyre. This is book 5 in the Never After series, which is a series of dark fairy tale reimaginings, and this one is the Hunchback of Notre Dame, and this one I gave 4 stars to. This is definitely my least favourite from the series so far. I've read all the other books and I think all the other ones I've given 5 stars to, but this one I didn't quite love as much. So in this one we see Father Cade, who is a priest, and he is not your average type of priest. He is very dark and is not afraid to kill people. He definitely has his dark moments, and he is definitely at many points during the beginning of this book he is definitely thinking about killing our main heroine, who is Amaya, who is a young woman who is having to look after her young brother, who is, I don't know if it's ever explicitly said, but I think he does have like autism or something along those lines, like learning difficulties, and she is looking after him and trying to kind of make ends meet, and because of past decisions made by her mother, who's no longer around, she is in debt to this very powerful, not very nice man, and we kind of see that play out, and it's her romance between her and Father Cade. So it's definitely a forbidden romance in terms of, obviously he is a priest, and I think he's a Catholic priest, I'm pretty sure, so obviously not supposed to have relations, and yeah, it's their romance. I liked this one, but I didn't feel as fully invested in this story as in comparison to previous books in this series, and I wasn't so really invested in the romance, as I say, in comparison to previous books. But definitely, if you are looking for a dark romance series, this series is definitely worth a read. If not for the beautiful, I nearly dropped it, not for the beautiful covers. I love the covers for this series, like they are absolutely stunning. I think they look really pretty, and you'll see I have them all stacked up there. I love them. I've got the collector's edition as well of Hooked, and I've pre-ordered the special edition of Scarred as well, and obviously if she brings out the other books in the series as well, I will definitely be picking them up. Love this series a lot, but this one was not my favourite in the series, but it was still a good read. Then I read Scythe and Sparrow by Brynne Weaver, which is book 3 in the Ruinous Love trilogy. This one I liked slightly more than the previous 2 books in this series, but I didn't necessarily love it. I gave it 3.5 stars, but I still kind of gave it a 3 on Goodreads, because whilst I liked it more than the previous 2 books, I didn't absolutely love it. So this series basically follows, it's again another dark series. There's a lot of trigger warnings at the beginning of this book, and I definitely, if you are triggered by anything, read through that list. The author really does give a very extensive list of things that people could be triggered by. And this series is, I think it's marketed as kind of like dark rom-com type romances, because they are dark, and there is definitely dark elements in here. Our main female character is a serial killer, but there is kind of moments in there that are humorous as well, and so it's like, it's dark, but it's also like a light dark. It's hard to describe, but in this one we have, I think her name was Rose, and she is working in a circus. She does fortune telling, and also does like this motorbike stunt act within the circus, but she is a serial killer, and she goes after men who have been harming women, and we see her go after a man that she meets at the circus, and she gets injured after going after this man. She doesn't end up killing him initially, but what happens to him is pretty gruesome. If you are squeamish about anything to do with eyes, I might suggest skipping this one, because there are some things involved with eyeballs that is kind of gross. And she ends up on the doorstep of Dr. Finn, I think is his name, and after she gets injured, and it's their romance. Finn, I think, is the brother of one of the previous characters from the series. As I say, I'm not sure if this author's writing is necessarily for me. I know a lot of people really love this series, but for me, it was just okay. Like, I read it, but I didn't necessarily love it, and I don't know if it's one that I'll necessarily remember in like months' time. So I'm not sure if I would necessarily recommend that one. Next, I read I Bet You'd Look Good in a Coffin by Katie Brent, and this is book 2 in the Kitty Collins series. Book 1 is called How to Kill Men and Get Away with It, or something like that. Let's just have a quick look. Yeah, How to Kill Men and Get Away with It. And I read that when it came out, I think a couple of years ago. And I gave the first book 4 stars. And this one, I think I did give 4 stars on Goodreads, but it's more of a 3.5. I didn't quite like it as much as the first book, but it was a good, solid book, solid read. I would definitely say that this is one that people would maybe pick up for like a summer beach read. It's got a fun cover. Although it's dark in terms of it's like got murder in it, it's definitely more on the lighter side of things. So in this one we follow Kitty Collins, who is again another serial killer, and she again goes after predominantly men who have cause women harm. And in this one she is kind of a bit obsessed with this guy on Instagram who posts videos in like a ski mask. He's got like a hidden identity, and he posts a lot of hateful videos towards women, and she kind of rage watches them, and he calls her out on social media and says that he's like coming after her. And so she is kind of always thinking about that at the back of her mind while she's going to the south of France for her mother's wedding. Her mother's getting remarried. And whilst they're kind of things unfurl, and things are not necessarily what they seem. And I like this one, but I don't think it's necessarily a new favourite, and I don't think, again, it's not got that memorable factor. Like, it was fun read, enjoyable read in the moment, but I don't think in kind of months' time it's going to be a memorable read. In fact, when I picked this one up, I didn't realise that it was a sequel to that first book. I just thought it was I thought it was a standalone, and I couldn't really remember much of the first book, if I'm being honest. So, like, they're good in the moment books, but longevity wise, I don't think that they have like a long lasting hold on me, unfortunately. Then I read The Locked Door by Freida McFadden, and this one is actually my least favourite Freida McFadden to date. This one I gave 3 stars to. This one we follow, I think her name's Nora. Nora, and she is the daughter of a serial killer, and she's kind of what do you call it, kind of renamed herself. So she goes by her like grandmother's surname or something to kind of hide her identity, because she doesn't obviously want people knowing that she's related to a serial killer, which is obviously fair enough. And she is a surgeon. She's worked very hard to get into this career, and this is told in past and present timeline, which isn't always my favourite. And in present day, we are seeing people being murdered in the same way that her father used to kill people. He used to cut off their hands, and we are seeing kind of like a copycat situation. And she is obviously the suspect for it. This one didn't have that same addictive quality as some of Freida McFadden's other books. This one is a short read, so I did read it quickly, but I didn't have that compulsion to like keep reading it in comparison to some of her other books. And I felt that there were a lot of plot points in here that weren't kind of fully wrapped up for my liking, so that's why I only gave this one a 3-star. Next, I read The Frozen People by Ellie Griffiths, which is the first book in her new series, and the series is called the Ali Dawson series. So I am a huge fan of the Dr. Ruth Galloway series by Ellie Griffiths. It's one of my favourite mystery series, and she's completed that series now, so this is the first book in a new series that she's writing. And this one was really interesting. So in this one we follow a new group of detectives, and they work for a special branch within the police force that they are actually able to, or have the ability to, time travel. And so they can use time travel to solve old cases that have been previously unsolved. And in this one we have obviously we have a past and present timeline, because the characters obviously time travel, and they are tasked with going back in time to the Victorian era to investigate a MP's grandfather who had been previously accused of being a murderer, and the MP in present timeline, because he's kind of building up his political career, wants to kind of prove that his grandfather wasn't what people thought, to kind of boost his image. So they go back in time to investigate that, and in the present timeline the MP ends up being killed, and we follow them on their journey as they try to discover what happened. And there's obviously overlap with things happening in the past. I really liked this one. I gave this one 4 stars. I think it was a solid start to the series. It did take me a little bit of time to get into this one. I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about the time travel aspect, but I did actually really enjoy that and thought it was a very interesting idea. I don't think I've read anything like that previously in terms of a mystery book, so I thought it was a good solid start, and I'm definitely interested to see where this series goes. Then I read Six Scorched Roses by Carissa Broadbent, which is book 1.5 in the Crowns of Nyaxia series. So this book is a short novella set within the Crowns of Nyaxia world. You can, I would say, read it as a standalone. Like if you haven't read the previous books in the series, I think you could read this as a starting point. But if you have read the first duet, you will get more out of this book, because these characters do feature in that first duet. And this is Lilith and, oh, what was his name? Oh, I can't remember what his name was. But it's Lilith and, I'm going to have to look at it. Lilith and Vale, sorry. Lilith and Vale's story, and we get to see very much the start of their relationship, and I really enjoyed this one. This one is definitely a slow burn romance, so it's quite short, and we really do get to see their romance kind of slowly build over time. I thought it was really good, and I gave this one 4 stars. It's quite a short read, so I haven't got too much to say about it because I don't want to obviously spoil it. But I think if you are a fan of the series, you will definitely want to pick up this novella. As I say, you could use this as a starting point for the series if you want to kind of read something a bit shorter. If you're not wanting to commit to the first book in the series, which is quite long, you want to see if Carissa Broadbent's writing is for you, you could read this as a standalone. But as I say, I think you will get more out of it if you have read the first duet in the Crowns of Nyaxia series. Then I read Infinite Fates by Laura Steven, and I enjoyed this one and gave this one 4 stars. This one follows 2 characters who are basically fated to be together. We get to see them over numerous timelines where they are destined to be together, but they ultimately end up killing each other. And we see, as I say, we see them through lots of different times, lots of reincarnations. They're not always male and female. Sometimes they're male and male, sometimes they're female and female. It's really a mix of what they get reincarnated as, but always they find each other and then they end up killing each other. Either one of them ends up killing the other. And we see a present day timeline, which is kind of obviously the main central plot line, where the female character, I can't remember her name or what her name was in this reincarnated situation, but she is very happy in her family life, and her sister is actually dealing with cancer, and she is the only one who's like bone marrow is a match to help her sister, and she is very conscious that it's getting towards her 18th birthday, which is when she always ends up dying in previous lives, and she really wants to obviously put a stop to that so that she can help save her sister. And we, as I say, it's told through this timeline as the kind of main central plot, but we do see them in previous lives as well. And we do get an explanation for why this has been. And I liked this one, but I feel like the explanation and the overall ending was a little bit rushed, which is why I didn't give it higher than a 4 star. I also feel that there were a few things that didn't quite fully wrap up as well as I would like. I feel like the ending is left quite open, which sometimes works, but in this one I would have liked more of a conclusion. But overall, this was a really good book, and I'm definitely excited to read more from this author. I have read from her previously when she was writing YA contemporary, and this is also a YA book as well, but her YA contemporaries I didn't necessarily love, but I'm interested in more of her fantasy stuff that she's been writing. Then I listened to Quicksilver by Callie Hart, which is book 1 in the Fae and Alchemy series, and I really enjoyed this one. I gave this one 4.5 stars. It wasn't quite a full 5 star, but I did really enjoy it. This one is a fantasy romance following, well, she believes herself to be human at the beginning of the book, and she ends up in the Fae world, and she basically has this skill that she can kind of create metal, and she can, Quicksilver is a particular type of metal that is highly sought after, and she can kind of sense it and work it to kind of create things. And it is her romance between this Fae lord called Kingfisher, and I thought that this was a really good start to the series. This is a really long book, so this audiobook is over 20 hours long, 20 hours 41 minutes is what it says here, and I felt at times it did feel like a little bit too long. Like, I think some of it could have been cut down, but overall I was really invested in the story, and although the audiobook is long, it didn't feel like a long audiobook when I was listening to it, if that makes sense. So really recommend listening to that one if you haven't already. There's going to be a second book called Brimstone, which I'm excited for, although I am a little bit sad that they've kind of changed the cover, because the cover for Quicksilver, the original cover, is really gorgeous, but the new cover that they are doing for Brimstone is a little bit boring in my opinion. I don't know what other people's thoughts are on the new cover. I'd love to hear your thoughts, but it's not for me, unfortunately. Then I read Woven by Gold by Elizabeth Helen, which is book 2 in the Beasts of Briar series. I gave this one 3 stars. So this series is a Beauty and the Beast retelling or loosely inspired story, and we have the Belle character, who is called Rosalina, sorry, and then we have 4 Fae princes for the 4 different Fae courts, and it is a romance between kind of all 4 of them. There's 4 books in this series, and this one I I thought was okay. Like, I gave it 3 stars. This one you can see is really long. In comparison to the first book, this is like 200 pages longer, and I don't feel like it needed to be 200 pages longer. Not a lot happened in this one, I feel like. I feel like most of the action is going to happen in book 3 and 4, I suspect, or maybe even just book 4. So this one just kind of felt very much like we're plodding along, expanding out the world a little bit, but not enough happened in this one to warrant it being this long. So that's why I only gave it 3 stars. I am interested in continuing on with the series, but it's not necessarily a favourite series. I know this series is very hyped. It even says it on the book. It's a TikTok sensation. I'm not sure if it's necessarily worth the hype. Like, I mean, I'm liking it, but I'm not necessarily loving it. So I don't really have too much to say about this one because I just thought it was okay. Then we have Slaying the Vampire Conqueror by Carissa Broadbent, which is this one. This one is a standalone set within the Crowns of Nyaxia world. So this one, again, I think you could read this by itself. I think even in here it is marketed as being a standalone. But it is set within the Crowns of Nyaxia world. And this one we are following Selena and Atreus and their kind of journey and romance together. This one, I think these characters are going to become more central in later books in the series from what Carissa Broadbent has said. So I think if you plan to read later ones, you will probably need to have read this one. But for now, you could maybe read this one as a standalone because there isn't really too much overlap with the other books. And there is, towards the end, like a brief mention of some characters from the series. But this one, again, was a bit like Six Scorched Roses. It was a bit more slow burn than the first 2 books or the first duet. And I thought this was good. I did feel in places that this focuses, I would say, more on the action rather than the romance between these 2 characters. The romance is definitely, I would say, a secondary plot to the actual action of what's happening with these characters. But overall, I did really enjoy this one. I do recommend Carissa Broadbent's books and her Crowns of Nyaxia series. I'm really enjoying this series. I've got book 3, I guess, which is the start of the second duet in this series to read. I've got that to read from the library, and I'm definitely enjoying binging her books. Her books, although are long, this one's not too long, but her previous ones have been a bit longer, they do have a really addictive writing to them in terms of it really sucks you into the story and makes you want to keep reading. So I did really enjoy this one, and I would definitely recommend it if you are a fan of the series, or even if you're just looking to get into the series. If you want to start with some shorter books first, this might be a good place to start. As I say, it is a standalone, so it doesn't have any real connection to the other books, but I think, as I say, these characters are going to become more in the later books in the series. Then I listened to the Strawberry Patch Pancake House by Laurie Gilmore, which is book 4 in the Dream Harbour series, and I gave this one 4 stars. This is the Gorgeous Works sprayed edge edition that they did. I really love this series. This series is just cute, fun reads. With the exception of the first book, I've given all the other books 4 stars. This one I did really like. This is a single dad and nanny romance, which is one of my favourite tropes. And we have Archer and Iris, and Archer finds out that he is the father to a 5-year-old girl. He finds out when the mother passes away, I think maybe in a car accident or something. I can't remember how she dies, but she passes away, and he finds out about his daughter, so he has to move to Dream Harbour to take care of her. He is a little bit reluctant about this at the start. He wasn't prepared to have a child. He didn't know about her, and he he definitely has concerns. He is a Michelin star chef, and he's been working in Paris, so moving to a small town is obviously a very different pace for him. And he hires Iris as a nanny because he needs help looking after his daughter whilst he is at work at the diner. He's trying to settle into this small town, and because he is a Michelin star chef, he tries to change some of the offerings at the diner, and one of the things he changes is the pancakes. He kind of makes them a bit more fancy, and the town residents do not like that. So throughout the book he's trying to master the kind of like original recipe that the townspeople really want. And Archer and Iris's romance really develops. It's quite, I would say they get together quite quickly. There's definitely from the start an attraction between the two that they kind of put off because obviously she is the nanny, but they do give in to that eventually. And I liked this one. I will say the third act breakup in this one was a little bit frustrating and was definitely not my favourite thing. I could kind of see it once this, I won't say what it happens, but once this event happens, I could kind of see that this was going to lead to the third act breakup, and it wasn't my favourite, but I did like this story. It's definitely a fun, easy read. If you like small town romances, I think you will like this series, and I would recommend picking up the series. Then I finally finished listening to Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross, which is book 1 in the Letters of Enchantment series, and I gave this one 3.5 stars. This one took me a while to get through, mainly because I kind of ended up picking up other things as well, but I wasn't necessarily fully invested in this story. There were moments that I did really enjoy, and definitely the ending has me intrigued enough to pick up the second book. But this is a young adult fantasy series following these two characters. They start out as newspaper journalists, and there is a war going on, and they end up becoming war correspondents. And there's also this fantastical element. This is where the fantastical element comes in. They have these magic typewriters where they can send letters to one another kind of magically. It was an interesting premise. Definitely I could, to be honest, I didn't really realise, and I don't know why I didn't realise this, but I picked this up and I thought it was historical fiction rather than fantasy romance, and I think the author has definitely drawn inspiration from like World War One, because I feel like that kind of comes through in the kind of war that's being fought. It definitely feels reminiscent of World War Two, World War One books that I have read in terms of their fighting in trenches and things like that. But the fantastical element in here I feel is quite light. I would say it's light fantasy. I don't know if there's going to be more fantasy in the second book, but overall it was just like an okay read, but the ending definitely drew me in. I did feel there were moments of this book that moved a little bit too slowly for my taste. And then the last book that I've read is Hungerstone by Kat Dunn, and I gave this one 3 stars. I didn't necessarily love this one, which is unfortunate. I was hoping to really love this one. This one is a Carmilla retelling, which I haven't read Carmilla, but Carmilla is a vampire book that basically inspired Dracula. I have read Dracula previously, and I was intrigued to check this one out. I love vampire books, so anything vampire related I do pick up. This one was an interesting read, I will say that. This definitely has kind of the gothic vibe to it, and I could definitely see, I think obviously the author naturally will have drawn inspiration from Dracula as well, and I feel like I could see some of that element coming through. I can't obviously comment on the closeness to Carmilla, but in this one we follow, I think her name is Lenore, and she is married to this guy called Henry, and their marriage is not necessarily the best. On the surface it seems like an okay marriage, but when you actually dig underneath, it's not, all is not as it seems. And they are travelling, and there's this carriage crash, and they basically end up taking in this strange woman called Carmilla, and strange things start happening once they take in Carmilla into their home. And it's very, I would say it's like unsettling, because nothing is ever fully really explained, I feel like, and it gives you that kind of uneasy feeling that something is not quite right, but we are not 100% sure what that is, and the story kind of progresses from there. And I thought that this was an interesting read, but not necessarily one that I was absolutely in love with, so that's why I only gave it 3 stars. I'm not sure if I would necessarily pick up anything from this author in the future, but I do plan at some point to read Carmilla, because I think that that would be quite an interesting book to read, especially because it's obviously influenced so many future vampire books. Obviously it was the inspiration, Bram Stoker got the inspiration for Dracula from Carmilla, and obviously there's been many vampire books. I'd love to kind of, now that I've read this, kind of see that kind of, you know, that first book that kind of inspired this one. So a 3-star book, but I'm glad that I have picked it up. It's a little bit different from what I would normally read, and they are all the books I have read so far in April. You will notice that I've not read any of my April TBR books, which are we even surprised by? I'm not. So hopefully I have started The Marriage for One on audio, but that's it. So I've decided that I'm going to make these TBRs. If I stick to them, I do. If I don't, then I'm not going to get too stressed about it, because I have read some other good books this month, and, you know, I am still reading stuff. It's not like I've not read anything. It's just that I've not read the ones that I planned to, because I have definitely been kind of mood reading, and I've also had a lot of library books that have reservations that have come in and are due back, that I've not been able to renew, so I've been focusing on those rather than some of my other books. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please let me know what you've been reading, if you have a favourite for this month so far, and I will see you guys in my next video.